August 19th, 1943, 3:15 in the afternoon. A military tent in Palermo, Sicily. The Mediterranean sun beats down on the canvas, making the interior stifling. General Dwight D. Eisenhower sits behind a wooden field desk, his jacket unbuttoned, sweat staining his collar. In his hand is a 3-page typewritten letter, an apology letter. Carefully worded, politically perfect, designed to save a career. Across from him stands Lieutenant General George S. Patton, Jr., commander of the U.S. 7th Army, the man who just conquered Sicily in 38 days. He is wearing his polished cavalry boots, his ivory-handled revolvers, his 3 stars gleaming even in the dim light of the tent. He looks like a Roman general. He looks invincible. Eisenhower slides the letter across the desk. "George, you need to sign this today." Patton doesn't pick it up. He doesn't even look at it. What is it? It's an apology to the soldier you struck, to the medical staff who witnessed it, to the American people who are demanding your resignation. Patton's jaw tightens. His hand moves to his hip, where his pistol would normally rest. But Eisenhower had asked him to leave his weapons outside. A small humiliation, a preview of what was coming. "I'm not apologizing for disciplining a coward." Eisenhower's voice remains calm, but there's steel underneath. "George, this isn't a suggestion. This is an order. You will sign this letter. You will deliver it personally to every division in 7th Army. You will apologize publicly, or you will be relieved of command and sent home. Those are your only 2 options." Patton finally looks down at the letter. He reads the first line. "I wish to apologize for my misconduct." He stops reading. His hands ball into fists. "I won't do it." Eisenhower leans back in his chair. He removes his reading glasses. He looks at Patton not as a friend, but as a superior officer about to end a career. "Then you're done, George. You're finished. You'll be on a plane to Washington tomorrow morning, and your war is over." The silence in the tent is absolute. Outside, soldiers move supplies. Trucks rumble past. The war continues. But inside this tent, everything has stopped. Patton stands frozen, staring at the letter that will either save his career or destroy his pride. And the decision he makes in the next 10 seconds will haunt him for the rest of his life. Because what Patton says next will reveal the brutal truth about command, about ego, about the price of being a warrior in a world that demands you also be a diplomat. This is that story. To understand why Eisenhower is demanding an apology, you have to go back 16 days, to a hospital tent, to a moment of rage that will define Patton's legacy as much as any battle he ever won. August 3rd, 1943, the 15th Evacuation Hospital near Nicosia, Sicily. The fighting for Sicily is at its peak. American casualties are streaming in by the hundreds. Wounded men lie on cots in rows, missing limbs, faces wrapped in bandages, some unconscious, others screaming. Patton arrives for one of his morale visits. He moves through the ward, stopping at each bed, shaking hands with the wounded, telling them they're heroes, promising them they'll be home soon. The soldiers worship him. He's George S. Patton, the old man, the general who rides in the lead tank, who shares their danger. Then he reaches a bed in the corner. A private, Charles H. Cool, 21 years old, sitting upright, no visible wounds, no bandages. Patton stops. "What's your problem, soldier?" Cool looks up. His face is pale. His hands are shaking. "I guess I can't take it, sir." Patton stares at him. No blood, no injury, just fear. "What do you mean you can't take it?" "The noise, sir. The shelling. I just can't take it anymore." Something snaps inside Patton. In a ward full of men who have lost legs, arms, eyes, who are bleeding into their bandages, this soldier is sitting here whole and intact, complaining about noise? You're a disgrace. Patton's hand moves before anyone can react. He slaps Cool across the face with his glove. The sound echoes through the tent. Wounded men turn their heads. Nurses freeze. You're a coward. You're sitting here like a baby while brave men are dying. A doctor rushes over, trying to intervene. "General, this man is—" "Get him out of here," Patton shouts. "I won't have cowards in the same hospital as brave men. Send him back to the front." Patton storms out of the tent, his boots pounding on the wooden duckboards. Behind him, Private Cool sits on his cot, his cheek red, his eyes filled with tears. The medical staff stands in stunned silence. One nurse, a captain, begins writing in her report log. She dates it carefully, August 3rd, 1943. She describes the incident in clinical detail. She uses the word struck. She notes that the general called the patient a coward. She signs her name. The report moves up the chain, to the hospital commander, to the medical corps, to the inspector general. But it doesn't stop there. Someone makes a copy. Someone sends it to a war correspondent, and suddenly the report that should have remained internal is about to become the biggest scandal of the war. But Patton doesn't stop with one incident. 7 days later, as if the first slap never happened, he does it again. August 10th, 1943, the 93rd Evacuation Hospital near Sanagata de Mitello. Patton arrives for another morale tour. He's in a foul mood. The fighting in Sicily is dragging. His forces are exhausted. He's convinced that half his casualties are from men who lack the guts to fight. He moves through the hospital, speaking with the wounded. Then he sees him, Private Paul G. Bennett, 19 years old, Indiana farm boy, sitting on a cot, crying. No visible wounds, no bandages. "What's wrong with you?" Bennett looks up, his face streaked with tears. "It's my nerves, sir. I can't stand the shelling anymore." "Your nerves?" Patton's voice is dangerously quiet. He looks at the medic standing nearby. "What's wrong with this man?" "Shell shock, sir. He's been on the line for 4 weeks straight. His unit took 60% casualties. Patton cuts him off. He grabs Bennett by his shirt collar and yanks him to his feet. "You're a goddamn coward. There's nothing wrong with you. I won't have cowards hiding in hospitals." He slaps Bennett across the face, once, twice. Then he draws his pistol. "You should be shot. You should be lined up against a wall and shot." Medical staff rush to intervene. A colonel physically steps between Patton and the soldier. "General, please, this man is genuinely ill." Patton holsters his pistol, but his rage hasn't subsided. "Get him back to the front. If you won't do it, I will." He storms out. Behind him, Private Bennett collapses back onto his cot, sobbing uncontrollably. The medical staff stands in shock. This isn't discipline. This is abuse. And this time there are too many witnesses to contain it. Within hours, reports are filed. By evening, multiple officers have documented the incident. By the next morning, war correspondents have heard the story from medical personnel who can no longer stay silent. And by August 15th, the scandal reaches Eisenhower's desk. Eisenhower reads the reports in his headquarters in Tunis. 2 incidents, 2 soldiers, multiple witnesses, and the press is starting to ask questions. He immediately orders an investigation, not a formal court-martial, not yet, just a fact-finding mission. He assigns his chief of staff, General Walter Bedell Smith, to interview everyone involved. Smith works fast. He interviews the doctors, the nurses, the hospital commanders. He tracks down Private Cool and Private Bennett. He takes sworn statements, and every interview confirms the same story. Patton struck enlisted men. He threatened them. He called them cowards. He brandished his weapon. Smith delivers his report to Eisenhower on August 17th. It's damning. The evidence is overwhelming. Under military law, striking an enlisted man is grounds for court-martial. For a general to assault soldiers under his command is a career-ending offense. But the report also includes context that complicates everything. Private Cool, medical examination after the incident, reveals he has chronic dysentery and malaria, temperature of 102.2 degrees. He wasn't faking, he was genuinely sick. Private Bennett, medical records show he voluntarily returned to combat after the slapping incident. He fought bravely in subsequent actions. He never filed a complaint. In fact, when interviewed, he says he doesn't want Patton punished. The doctors, several admit that combat exhaustion is poorly understood, that soldiers suffering psychological breakdown are often labeled as cowards, that the medical corps itself doesn't have clear protocols for handling shell shock, and that Patton's attitude, while brutal, reflects the thinking of many officers. Eisenhower sits with the report for hours. He has several options. Option 1, court-martial Patton, by the book, justice served, but he loses his most aggressive combat commander in the middle of a war. Option 2, quietly relieve Patton of command, send him home, avoid the scandal, but the press already knows. Keeping it quiet is impossible. Option 3, reprimand Patton privately, make him apologize, keep him in theater, hope the scandal blows over. Eisenhower chooses option 3, but he knows it's a gamble. Because if the press gets hold of this story before Patton apologizes, the public outrage will force Eisenhower's hand. He'll have to fire Patton, whether he wants to or not. Which brings us back to that tent in Palermo, to Eisenhower and Patton, to the letter sitting on the desk between them. Eisenhower tries a different approach. "George, sit down." Patton doesn't move. "Please, sit." Patton slowly lowers himself into the chair across from Eisenhower. For the first time, he looks vulnerable, not like a warrior, like a man who knows he's made a terrible mistake. Eisenhower's voice softens. "George, I know what you were trying to do. I know you believe these men were malingering. I know you think that showing weakness in front of wounded soldiers undermines morale. I understand your thinking. But you were wrong. The medical reports came back. Both men were sick. Cool had malaria and dysentery. Bennett had been in combat for a month straight without relief. They weren't cowards, George. They were broken." Patton's face doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes. Doubt, or maybe just the realization of what he's done. "I didn't know about the malaria. You didn't ask, you just assumed." Eisenhower leans forward. "George, do you know what happens if this story gets out before you apologize? The press will crucify you. Congress will demand your head. The mothers of America will ask why their sons are being commanded by a man who beats them when they're sick, and I won't be able to protect you." Patton's jaw tightens. So this is about politics. Eisenhower's response is immediate and sharp. "No, this is about justice. You struck 2 enlisted men. You humiliated them in front of their peers. You threatened to shoot them. Under military law, that's assault. If they were officers, you'd be court-martialed. But because they're privates, because they didn't file formal complaints, I have discretion. I'm using that discretion to give you a chance to make this right." He taps the letter. "This is your chance, George. Take it." Patton picks up the letter. He reads it slowly. His lips move as he reads the words someone else has written for him. Words about misconduct and regret and promises to do better. Words that taste like ashes in his mouth. When he reaches the end, he sets it down. "I won't sign this." Eisenhower's expression hardens. "Then you're relieved. Pack your things. You're going home." Patton stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the dirt floor. "You need me, Ike. You know you need me." Eisenhower stands as well. For a moment, they face each other, two generals, friends, rivals, allies who are about to become enemies. I need generals who can control themselves. I need commanders who don't assault their own men. What I don't need is someone who thinks he's above the law. I'm not above the law. I'm trying to win a war. Then win it without brutalizing soldiers who are sick. The words hang in the air. Eisenhower takes a breath, forcing himself to calm down. George, you're the best field commander I have. You're aggressive, you're bold, you win. But this I can't defend. If you won't apologize, I have to fire you. It's that simple. Patton looks at the letter again, then at Eisenhower, then at the map on the wall showing Sicily, now almost entirely under Allied control, territory he conquered, victory he delivered. If I sign this, what happens? You'll deliver the apology to every division in 7th Army, personally. You'll meet with the soldiers you struck, if they're willing. You'll make it clear that your actions were wrong. And then, if the press stays quiet, you'll continue commanding 7th Army. And if the press doesn't stay quiet, then we deal with that when it happens. Patton stands in silence for a long moment. Everything he is, everything he believes about himself, rebels against this. He is George S. Patton. He doesn't apologize, he doesn't bow, he doesn't submit. But he also knows Eisenhower isn't bluffing. The look in Ike's eyes is absolute. Sign or leave, those are the only options. Finally, Patton speaks. His voice is quiet, almost broken. I was trying to save their lives. Eisenhower nods. I know. If I let men quit because they're scared, everyone will quit. The whole army will fall apart. I know. I've seen it, Ike. I've seen units collapse because one man showed fear, and it spread like a disease. You have to be hard. You have to be ruthless. That's how you keep men alive. Eisenhower's response is gentle but firm. There's a difference between hard and cruel, George. You crossed that line. Patton's shoulders slump. For the first time in his life, the great warrior looks defeated, not by an enemy, by himself. He picks up the pen from Eisenhower's desk. He pulls the letter toward him. His hand hovers over the signature line. This will destroy me. Maybe, or maybe it will save you. Patton signs. His signature is shaky, nothing like his usual bold scrawl. When he finishes, he slides the letter back across the desk without looking at it. Happy? No, Eisenhower says, but it's the right thing. Patton turns to leave. He gets to the tent flap, then stops. Ike. Yes, I still think I was right. I know you do, George. That's the problem. Patton leaves. Eisenhower watches him go, then looks down at the signed letter. He folds it carefully and places it in his briefcase. Tomorrow, Patton will begin his apology tour. Tomorrow, the humiliation will begin. But tonight, Eisenhower has saved his most aggressive commander from self-destruction. Or has he? Because in 48 hours, everything will change. For 10 weeks, Eisenhower's gamble works. Patton delivers his apologies. He visits every division in 7th Army. He stands before thousands of soldiers and reads the letter. His voice is flat, his face is stone, but he does it. He meets with Private Cool at a hospital in Tunis. Cool, recovered from his malaria, shakes Patton's hand and tells him there are no hard feelings. He says he understands the general was under stress. Patton thanks him stiffly and leaves. Private Bennett is harder to find. He's back on the front lines, fighting in Italy. When Patton tracks him down, Bennett salutes and says he doesn't want an apology. He says the slap woke him up, made him realize he needed to be stronger. Patton stands there, unsure whether to feel vindicated or ashamed. The press, so far, has stayed quiet. War correspondents know the story, but they also know Patton is winning battles. There's an unspoken agreement: we won't destroy a winning general during wartime. But on November 21st, 1933, the agreement shatters. Drew Pearson, a muckraking radio journalist in Washington, breaks the story on his national broadcast. "Folks, I have a story that the military doesn't want you to hear. General George S. Patton, the so-called hero of Sicily, has been covering up a scandal. He brutally assaulted 2 hospitalized American soldiers, men suffering from battle fatigue, men who had given everything for their country. He slapped them, he called them cowards, he threatened to shoot them, and the army has done nothing." The reaction is instantaneous. By the next morning, newspapers across America are running the story. Editorial pages demand Patton's removal. Congressmen call for investigations. Mothers of soldiers write angry letters to the War Department. In North Africa, Eisenhower receives a cable from General Marshall in Washington. 3 words: "Fix this now." Eisenhower has no choice. He calls Patton to his headquarters. When Patton arrives, Eisenhower doesn't waste time. "George, you're relieved of command of 7th Army. Effective immediately." Patton knew it was coming, but the words still hit like a physical blow. What happens now? You stay in theater. You keep your rank, but you have no command. You're essentially in exile until I decide what to do with you. How long? I don't know. Depends on how long the press keeps this story alive. Patton stands there, stripped of everything that defines him. No army, no mission, no purpose. "I apologized. I did everything you asked." "I know, but it wasn't enough. The damage is done." Patton's voice turns bitter. "So that's it? I win Sicily in 38 days and my reward is exile?" "Your reward was supposed to be command of an army in the invasion of France, but you threw that away when you couldn't control your temper." The words land like a slap. Patton's face goes white. "The invasion? I'm not going to be part of the invasion?" Eisenhower's silence is answer enough. Patton walks out of the office. He returns to his quarters, a small villa outside Palermo. His staff tries to speak to him, but he waves them away. He sits alone in his room, staring at nothing. That night, he writes in his diary. His handwriting is shaky, filled with rage and self-pity. "I have been destroyed by my own hand. The greatest invasion in history is being planned, and I will watch from the sidelines because I disciplined 2 cowards. The press has made me a villain, the politicians demand my head, and Ike, my friend, has abandoned me." He pauses, then writes one more line. "But I still believe I was right." For 3 months, Patton sits in exile. He has an office, he has a staff, but he has no command. He attends planning meetings for the invasion of France, but only as an observer. He watches other generals receive the commands he was promised. He sees the maps, the plans, the massive buildup of forces, and he's not part of it. The isolation destroys him. He writes angry letters to friends in Washington, demanding to be reinstated. He threatens to resign and return home. He drinks too much and writes dark poetry about honor and betrayal. But Eisenhower doesn't respond to his pleas. Ike is letting Patton suffer, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The press needs to forget, the public needs to move on, and Patton needs to learn that there are consequences for his actions. In January 1944, Eisenhower visits Patton's quarters. Patton expects another lecture. Instead, Eisenhower sits down and pours them both a whiskey. "How are you holding up?" How do you think? Eisenhower nods. George, I need to tell you something. You're not going to command an army in the initial invasion. Patton already knew, but hearing it confirmed is still devastating. But, Eisenhower continues, you're going to command Third Army once we break out of Normandy. You'll land about 6 weeks after D-Day, and when you do, I'm turning you loose. Patton looks up, hope flickering in his eyes. You're giving me Third Army? On one condition, no more incidents, no more slapping soldiers, no more threatening to shoot people. You command like a professional, or I'll relieve you permanently. Understood? Patton nods slowly. Understood. Good, because I need you, George. I need your aggression. I need your audacity. But I also need you to control yourself. Can you do that? Patton stands and extends his hand.
On July 28, 1944, Patton lands in Normandy. Third Army is activated on August 1st. Within 2 weeks, he's broken out of the Normandy hedgerows and is racing across France. In 30 days, he covers 600 miles. He liberates hundreds of towns. He destroys dozens of German divisions. The press, which crucified him in November, now celebrates him as a genius. The public, which demanded his firing, now cheers his victories. The incident in Sicily fades into the background, buried under an avalanche of success. In December 1944, when the Germans launch the Battle of the Bulge, it's Patton who saves the day. He pivots Third Army 90 degrees in 48 hours and relieves the besieged forces at Bastogne. Eisenhower, watching from headquarters, shakes his head in admiration. George, you magnificent bastard. But Patton never forgets Sicily, never forgets the slaps, never forgets the apology. In private conversations, he still defends his actions. He still insists the soldiers were cowards. He still believes he was right. And when the war ends, when historians begin writing the official accounts, Patton's version of the story is quietly edited. The apology letters disappear from the official files. The medical reports on Kuhl and Bennett are classified. The narrative becomes, Patton disciplined some soldiers. The press overreacted, but he was vindicated by his victories. It's not the truth, but it's the story Patton wants history to remember. It takes decades for the full truth to emerge. In the 1970s, when the classified files are finally opened, historians discover something devastating. Private Charles Kuhl. Medical records confirm he had malaria with a temperature of 102.2 degrees, chronic dysentery, and was malnourished. He was genuinely sick. He returned to duty 2 weeks after the slapping incident and fought in Italy. He survived the war. When interviewed in 1974, he said he held no grudge against Patton, but wished the general had asked about his condition before striking him. Private Paul Bennett. Records show he suffered what we now call PTSD. He had witnessed his best friend decapitated by artillery. He had gone 4 weeks without sleep. His unit had taken 60% casualties. After the slapping incident and a brief hospitalization, he returned to combat and fought bravely through Italy. He was wounded twice. After the war, he suffered nightmares for decades. He died in 1970, never speaking publicly about the incident. The Medical Corps. Internal reports from 1943 revealed that Army doctors were deeply divided on how to treat combat exhaustion. Some believed it was a legitimate psychological injury. Others believed it was cowardice and should be treated with discipline. Patton's views, while extreme, were shared by many officers of his generation. The slapping incidents forced the Army to confront the reality of psychological wounds. New protocols were developed. Combat exhaustion became a recognized medical condition. Treatment facilities were established. Thousands of soldiers received help instead of punishment. In a dark irony, Patton's brutal actions led to reforms that saved countless lives. But Patton never acknowledged this. He never accepted that he was wrong. He went to his grave believing the soldiers were cowards and the apology was a political surrender. After the war, military historians debate the slapping incidents endlessly. The arguments fall into three camps. Camp 1, Patton was right. He was trying to prevent an epidemic of malingering. In total war, weakness cannot be tolerated. The soldiers he slapped both returned to duty and fought well, proving his methods worked. Camp 2, Patton was wrong. He assaulted sick men. He violated military law. He abused his authority. His apology was meaningless because he never believed he was wrong. He should have been court-martialed. Camp 3, it's complicated. Patton was a product of his era. His views on courage and cowardice were typical of World War I generation officers. His actions, while wrong, led to reforms in how the military treats psychological trauma. He was simultaneously a brilliant tactician and a deeply flawed human being. One historian writes, Patton won battles and brutalized soldiers. Both statements are true. We don't have to choose which defines him. Both do. Another notes, the slapping incidents reveal the central paradox of Patton. The qualities that made him a great warrior, aggression, fearlessness, intolerance of weakness, also made him a terrible leader of men. He could inspire soldiers to do the impossible, and he could destroy them with a single moment of rage. Eisenhower's assessment, written in his memoirs, is the most balanced. George Patton was the finest combat commander I ever knew. He was also the most difficult subordinate I ever managed. The slapping incidents were inexcusable. His refusal to genuinely apologize was infuriating, but I needed him to win the war, so I kept him. History can judge whether I made the right choice. August 19, 1943. A tent in Palermo. Eisenhower watches Patton leave, the signed apology in his briefcase. A staff officer enters. Sir, will he actually deliver the apologies? Eisenhower nods. He will, because he wants back in the war more than he wants to be right. But does he believe the apology? Eisenhower's response is quiet and sad. No, he'll never believe it. He'll sign the letters, he'll say the words, but he'll go to his grave convinced those soldiers were cowards and he was doing his duty. Then why make him apologize? Because some things are more important than what George Patton believes, like the idea that generals can't assault enlisted men, like the principle that authority has limits, like showing the American people that we hold our commanders accountable. The officer considers this. Sir, do you think we'll regret keeping him? Eisenhower looks at the map on the wall, at the plans for the invasion of Europe, at the long road to Germany. We'll regret it if we don't. What Patton said when told to apologize for slapping a soldier was ultimately nothing. He signed the letter, he delivered the apologies, he said the words Eisenhower required. But what he believed was something else entirely. He believed he was right. He believed the soldiers were wrong. He believed the apology was a surrender to politics, not justice. And maybe that's the real story. Not what Patton said, but what he refused to believe. That courage comes in many forms. That breaking isn't the same as cowardice. that a man can face enemy fire every day for a month and still reach a point where his mind says, enough. Patton never learned that lesson. He apologized with his mouth, but not with his heart. He signed the letters, but never changed his mind. He was one of the greatest battlefield commanders in American history. He was also a man who couldn't see the difference between weakness and wounds. And in the end, both things are true. We don't get to choose which one defines him. History remembers both: the warrior who conquered Sicily in 38 days, and the general who slapped sick soldiers and called them cowards. The apology was signed, the words were spoken, but the man who said them never believed a word of it.
And that, perhaps more than the slaps themselves, is the tragedy of George S. Patton.